Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Pit Talk, pulling pits and opinions with your host, Gunny G, where service members help service members, period. Follow, like, subscribe everywhere you get your podcasts and on most social media platforms. Let us know how we're doing. Any criticism is good criticism. We got a special guest hailing in from San Diego. I'll let him introduce himself, but it's going to be a good show for all those recruiters out there. You already know if you're listening to the podcast, you know how much love and hate I give you guys all the time, but you know, it's all with love and respect for the organization. Blasey. Anyway, Matt Sergeant, go ahead and introduce yourself, where you're from, billets, capacities, what you're doing now in terms of the Marine Corps. Go ahead.
All right, Gunny, I appreciate you having me on. So my name is Frank Lara. I joined the Marine Corps in July of 2006 as an infantryman. Obviously go to ITB, and then from that point on, from the end of 2006 to the beginning of 2013, I was with 1st Battalion, 1st Marines, Alpha Company, 1st Platoon. Shout out to them. In that capacity, started to be a stall gunner at the very beginning. To this day, I still don't understand. I was 130 pounds, and I was handed the M249 saw. I had a bigger Marine beside me. He could have easily carried that thing. From there, you kind of grow, being mentored and everything else from in that capacity to, being a fire team leader to a squad leader. Had the privilege of going the infantry squad leaders course when it was really still a thing before it went to AIC and ISOL back in 2008. And then went to recruiting duty in 2013. And I was just thinking to myself, Chesty, how could you do this to me? I'm a infantryman's infantryman. I've done all the fun stuff. I did 4 deployments with 1-1, and I somehow ended up, hey, you're going to go to recruiting duty. What I've learned is if you want to go places in your career within the Marine Corps, you got to be proactive about it. So once that Red Star cluster was shot up, I reached out to Fort Worth and did the whole resume and bio thing, and luckily got a by name request to my hometown. I will be honest with you, my first 36 months of recruiting duty was, it was probably what everything that you hear. Performance-wise for me, you go from being an infantry guy, being the guy, to being just someone else in the office trying to just find your way. I was not systematic, I guess you'd say, as we teach at the schoolhouse. I was just hustling, and after a while, you kind of burn candles on both ends, and that brings us challenges. I welcomed orders in 2016, to 3rd Battalion, 4th Marines, and 29 Palms. A little shout out to them too. I became a 0369 back in 2016. I did a Marine Rotational Force Darwin deployment with them, and then I did my 6th deployment total, maybe my second time to Afghanistan back in 2019. Everyone hits their crossroads. For me, I was really, I like being challenged. How I got into the Marine Corps was just really off a whim. I remember Gunny Blackman being like, I'm speaking to all of you in this room right now, but this message is really only going to resonate with a couple of you. And if it feels like it resonates with you, then, I challenge you to come talk to me, be a Marine. I wanted to go back to recruiting duty to prove a point that I wasn't just an average Marine. I wanted to go back out there and perform again. I was really mad with my performance. You do a lot of reflection. I think I matured a lot up to down later on in my career. Go back to recruiting. The only reason I honestly became an 8412 is because the Marines that I've been privileged to work with, they've kind of, hustled. They did really well. They were really great at learning from the experiences and the things that we had. Became a lateral move to be a career recruiter. Ironically, on March 11th of 2021, 0311, also my daughter's birthday. Another story. That's why I re-enlisted.
There you go.
I re-enlisted because of her. I was like, might as well. Then became 8412. Then got selected to come to recruiting school, where I was a group advisor for about a year. Then I was a systematic recruiting chief, just dealing a lot with curriculum, teaching Marines about the enlisted recruiting process. And then now, since January, I've been the basic recruiting course head, which is the principal. So in a nutshell, that's really who I am. And I appreciate you bringing me here today.
No, man, sorry. Thank you. Thanks. The formalities out, if you don't mind, Frank. It's a big deal to go from just your MOS to 8411 to now back to the fleet, and then you have a calling back to 8411 and be an 8412. It takes a lot of moral courage and so to speak cajones, if you know what I'm saying. Like, there's no way that you don't have a purpose and a calling to 8412. It's just more than just a SDA, don't you think?
Yeah, yes, sir. So
I
I
would
enjoy it.
go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just saying, it's just, it's really seeing Marines make it through adversity. Like, Marines working in the recruiting substations, like helping them get through that, helping them. This is a tough job, but find that belief back in themselves. And then they go to the fleet and then they kill it, or helping that person that really doesn't have nothing going for them in their lives and just helping them find that purpose. And for me, I guess I found this purpose, ironically, coming back to make ends meet because, to overcome a challenge I had initially.
Hell yeah. Hey, look, Master, I'll tell you what. If it's not you, it's not going to be me. I'll tell you that right now.
I'll get your orders here in a little bit.
Yeah, right. Hey, congratulations thus far with you and your family. I know that it presents its challenges already. And yeah. I got to ask, how has this affected your family going to 8411, back to the fleet, 8411, 8412, and staying out there? And how does that present adversity, so to speak, for your family?
Oh, man, I think, adversity is just, I guess, relevant for the individual, if that makes sense. For me, when it came to my wife, just kind of laid it down. Hey, she understands she's joined the Marine Corps together. She knows I was in the Marine Corps prior to meeting her. We just had our 15-year anniversary on the 22nd.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
But, yeah. For us, we, I guess when I'm home, I made it a point to be home, be involved in my kids' stuff. So even though like having the deployments, going to the field for a month, but if we have a birthday party, then my appointed place of duty is going to be at that birthday party. If my daughters have a soccer game, I'm gonna be there. On recruiting, I made it. I guess what hopefully recruiters take from this is that my family was involved in recruiting with me. My daughter, she can run a 3-mile pretty competitively here on MCRD when they do the little races on here. But it's because I brought her to the ISTs and I had her race the pulleys. And then obviously I talk mess to the pulleys and recruiters if they beat them, if she beats them. But I just had him so involved, and my family has been very blessed and I'd say privileged to really take advantage of how the Marine Corps supports the family. Not saying that it's not hard. There is challenges with that. But my wife she's had, like we as enlisted Marines have mentors, she's had really great mentors too. And she kind of, I guess after my 4th deployment with her, she was like, you know what I've learned, and it's from the battalion commander's wife. She talked to all the wives, telling them that you got to just kind of live life and just hopefully they can be there, but don't like let your life go on pause waiting for them. Cause that's when a lot of people have a lot of challenges. So I'd say how it affected my wife and I and my family, man, I don't know. People hate this about me. I just really kind of see the bright side of things, kind of just being there for my family as much as I can and making it a point, making the time that I have with them.
Absolutely. That's good. That's good gouge. Master, I'll tell you what, for all the recruiters listening, if it sounds like it's 15 years, it's not easy, but communications is a must. In order for your daughter to be here, you got to communicate to your wife, hey, that's what I want to do. So it sounds like communication's a baseline, fundamental for you and your family. So it's good, and I'm happy for it. At 15 years, congratulations to you and yours. But I got to say, to get to the meat and potatoes, recruiting, right? I am a big proponent of selfless service. Obviously, because I'm a drill instructor, that's nor here or there. But sustaining the transformation, how do we do that in terms of? But the tags, right? If we're supposed to sustain a transformation, if we're supposed to get these selfless individuals, none of them are selfless. So you got to buy them in with these eyes. But there's not enough me's or team oriented tags, so to speak. Is that a problem, or is that something that we've addressed before that we should probably readdress now?
Now, I think that, everyone has their different outlook. What you're referring to is what's called the benefit tags. Really, the benefit tags, there's different sets of them. There's a total of 11 of them, but there's tangible tags and intangible tags. Some of the things that you may be referring to is like educational opportunities, financial security advancements and benefits, heck, even travel and adventure. But there's most of our tags are things like pride of belonging, self-discipline, self-direction, self-reliance, courage, poise, self-confidence, leadership development skills. Really how we've kind of talked about the benefit tags is all they really are is they're just a sales tool. The volume 1 talks about that. as them being a sales tool, just to kind of help an applicant see like, here's the steps that you need to take in order to get to whatever that desire to achieve or change something is, and for us, it kind of helps us guide the conversation with each and every applicant, because, it is the Marine Corps. And I do agree with you. It takes an average person can't just join the Marine Corps. There's got to be some kind of pride of belonging or something. But I think we learned that within our institution. A lot of that, obviously, the transformation process starts with the recruiter. It's in our recruiter's creed, but we kind of learned that throughout, how to get to, that pride of belonging, that self-service, and honestly, a lot of people want to stick in the Marine Corps just possibly because of that.
Hey, that's well spoken, Master. I say, agree. I agree. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a recruiter. I don't ever want to be a recruiter. To each their own. But the benefit tags for me is when I see them, I see a lot of eyes, and this is a war fighting organization that's oriented around teams, platoons, fire squads. There's no individuals here that stand out. This is not like basketball, like MJ and Scottie Pippen, right? This is not a thing. It requires everybody to take a real good look at each other and carry their pack. And for me, the benefit tags maybe should be a redress, but again, you just kind of convinced me otherwise. I tell you what, challenge. You talk about challenge. One of the benefit tags for you is that you like a challenge, and recruiting provided you a different challenge than your original MOS. What happened there that kind of leaned you over to the other side?
As in, you're talking about in reference to become a career recruiter?
Correct. From your MOS, the gunner, to 8411 to now staying 8412. It almost sounds like maybe you needed some consistency, maybe some stability. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would. I think when you're in a victory unit, certain infantry battalion or anything, you kind of get used to the teeth, like the training of how it's going to go. Every workup's the same. You're going to have breaks when it comes to here. But recruiting was just a little different. And it was just because every day is something new. One day every day you're dealing with people that potentially could join the Marine Corps, but then you're going to deal with parents and influencers and talking to them. And that was always fun for me. I try to be a personable person. I think the easiest part about recruiting is I hope people don't fear it like a lot, but you just got to be yourself. You got to be a good dude or dudette or whatever you want to be. And people can see that, and people are going to want to join a branch of service because of that. Because again, it goes back to, that transformation process begins with me. I'm the example for future Marines to emulate. But that also goes for people in society. You have to be what right looks like. So going back to it, it just provided me that challenge. It provided me that, like, man, I don't know if I'm going to I may be great this month, but I'm going to be great next month. And for me, it's like doing things constantly. And it was good, and when you have success or, you have a good team, you can kind of build your life around that, and it makes everything a lot easier.
Gosh, you're Master. I'll tell you what, recruiting dude has made you well spoken. I'll tell you what, you can work around the questions real good. I gotta ask.
Oh my God!
Look, I'll tell you what, Master. So I talk to a lot of recruiters. I'm not gonna lie to you. I talk to I guess pretty well known recruiters on Instagram, on Facebook, whatever the case may be, right? And I think a lot of them bring up a little tidbit. Recruiting school should be revamped in a way that it benefits the streets. Do you think that we should add, and you've been on the streets before, so now you're back in your 8412, you're showing them how to be a recruiter, so to speak. Do you think the school is relevant to the streets, so to speak, or there should be some curriculum change in terms of what you see and what you get in terms of return on investment, so to speak, as a recruiter?
Yeah, no, I think that, the end of course critiques is something that we review that all the time. Like actually today after this, we're going to go through the end of course critiques, because we pick up another class tomorrow, ironically. But, we pull information from the streets. We do site visits. After every class is taught, we read through like, hey, what's the feedback? And then the instructor also provides instructor feedback. How did he feel? Is it relevant? Every year, we actually do rotate recruiters, 8412, out of here, so we're always relevant to, like, now we have Genesis that came up. We have all these other things. So now they're more aware of that. So we're always, when it comes to what we teach here, we're always, we're making it relevant. We're going through everything. We're pulling from the streets. We're getting successful recruiters. Actually, they come back to our schoolhouse and they talk to our students. like, hey, this is what we learned. Do this, do this. Don't try to go off this way. Like, just stick to the basics and fundamentals. It's freaking awesome. I think that we're going through there. Later this year, we're potentially going to do a little rewrite of some things, but that's just because as the streets change, the publications tend to change too. And they're going to make it continue to be relevant to everybody, because General Mattis said that the most successful tool on the battlefield is the 6 inches between your ears, referring to your brains. And that's something that we believe in. So.
That's good. Nice. I like that. That's good, Master. You know what? Drop the mic right there. We're done. That's pretty good. There it is, Master. So the curriculum change happened. And so for those that are listening, those recruiters, the curriculum change is happening. But do you guys touch on basic finance, right? Because, some Marines have never had an apartment, right? Because they live in the barracks, right?
Yeah.
And some Marines never had a car note because they didn't have to have one, and now they do. And all these things that come with being an adult, wah for those who don't know how to be an adult. Do you touch on that? How often do you touch that on the BRSC?
Yeah, actually, we have a civilian that comes on to our base. And she kind of spins them up on some of the things that are available to them. When it comes to finances, we have an EFMP come down to us and explain to them some of the things that will be available if that's a Marine circumstance. There's a lot of civilians that come and support us either at the beginning of the course, throughout the course, or towards the end as we make it to within our schedule. Some of the challenges are going to be there, though, with I've never bought a house before. I've never bought a car before. The other thing that we don't really talk about is just that every instructor, like even for me, and we have group chats that I always reach out to, students, or they reach out to me if they have any kind of questions, if we're recruiting or personal life. So, we just kind of continue that whole thing.
I like it. It sounds good. I don't know, to be honest, I've never been to the school. I'm not going to be a recruiter, but it sounds like you take the end of the course critiques for the instructors and the students. Yeah, right. The end of course critiques, the instructors, you take that pretty seriously, and you're always trying to make yourself better as a recruiting school. And that's great. That's awesome news for those that are coming in, or those that are coming in hot to the recruiting school. You should know that you're going to get the most relevant information according to the curriculum chief, Master Sergeant Lara. Hey, thank you for coming on. I appreciate your time. Let's talk about, you have issues on the streets. How long since you've been on the streets since you became an 8412 Master?
So I left the streets. I'd say I got to recruiting school on March of 21. So I'm actually due for orders next summer.
So what is it that you rotate in when the 8412s? What kind of billets do you guys hold?
While at the schoolhouse, everyone comes to BRC, basic recruiting course. Everyone comes to be a instructor, and then we have a boarding process, and then you can either become a course chief. Our 4 courses are Marine Corps product knowledge, systematic recruiting, quality enlistment procedure, and then also sales, talking about MC3 and everything else. And then from that point on, you kind of, what my billet is right now, you can be a course head, and that basically in charge of, like, if I was a squad leader, those are the fire team leaders, and then all the group advisors have, all their little students and everything else. So there's a lot of billets as you come through here. We have an FFI on staff. Anything you can think of. It's basically like a full service command that we have at recruiting school.
Wow. And then you said you're due for orders. How do you know where you're going to get, or what kind of billets and capacities do you guys get at 8412s? I know it's not the same as 8411s.
Yeah, it really goes into, your experience. Our monitor, he actually came down and just talked to us. He explained to us how the process works. Who should we be talking to? Where do we want to go? And sometimes you got to be realistic about the billets, because there is, at least a little less than 500 of us as 8412s, and maybe the billet that you want may not be available now, but you could maybe get that location, or maybe you can go get that same billet at a different location. So it's really up to the career recruiter and kind of how they network, really what our job has taught us.
Are you so you're not, it doesn't deter you from going back to the streets, does it?
No, heck no. Man, it's a challenge. Like, yeah, I'm telling you, just to be the face for the Marine Corps, at least to be the best face possible. It's a great privilege. It's not pressure. like pressure's that lady down the street, maybe right now trying to make ends meet for her kid. Pressure's someone that is going through whatever struggles right now in life. They just found out some bad news. That's pressure. Like it's a privilege to be a Marine, and it kills me sometimes with Marines, but it's just the best thing available to me. This is a privilege. It's not pressure.
What's some of the advice you can give some of the students that are coming in hot this year, next year, or this year, the end of the year? What's some of the best advice you can give them going into BRC for those that are coming in hot for the recruiting duty? Excuse me.
Yeah, I would say be realistic. Don't some people come in with this crazy expectations, and maybe that's their first time hitting adversity, and they're like, oh my goodness, I don't know about this. So be realistic. Be someone that can want to learn the concepts, learn from your mistakes. I always got on to my recruiters and they're like, what, this kid just made me so mad. And I was like, man, you really gonna let an 18-year-old pee in your Cheerios? Or I'd say a different word,
Yeah.
So I'd say just, you got to have the right mindset. You got to have the right mentality. And that's what being a Marine is having that mentality, going after, it's the same as we ran up a hill, Machine Gun Hill. What's the difference on recruiting? Why is it different? Because it's recruiting. It's the same mentality. It's the same mindset. This nation needs the right kind of people in our branch of service. So why not have a stellar Marine out there performing with the right attitude?
Wow, that's good. You're not selling me at all. I'm telling you right now, I'm getting further and further away from the idea. Further and further away. I'll tell you what, that's good. You are thoroughly indoctrinated recruiter. I'll tell you that. Good on you,
man. My dog's name is Smedley,
Hey, look.
He's over here sleeping on the couch.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy. So that's listen, if you're just joining in, be humble. I mean, any SDA, you got to be humble. You're learning a new MOS. Be realistic. Exactly. The expectations are not what you think. You're learning a whole new job. I get it. Going to General Circuit duty, that was the same thing. Be humble.
Yeah.
Because if you're not humble, they definitely humble you. And I'm sure that's the same idea. Like if you're not humble and you're coming in egotistical, right? They're gonna humble you real quick, and these pulleys will too. Plus your peers to the left and right. So that's good. It's good advice. Let me ask you. I'm pretty sure it's the same issues now. Maybe it's not relevant now, but while you were on the streets, some of the things that I get: education. We talk about education. These high schoolers that graduate, they don't really have it in terms of the know-how, the wit, or what they learned in school. Can you touch on that? Was that the same thing while you were on the streets, or were they a whole lot smarter back in the day?
No, I think those challenges has always been there, and unfortunately, sometimes in that aspect, some kids may not perform the way that we think they would perform. But one thing that has definitely helped me out is networking with counselors, talking to them, because sometimes a counselor would just go to the military as a last resort. And it's really because they don't fully understand how we can actually help these young men and women achieve their goals in life, So when I've just networked with a lot of counselors and stuff, and I've had a lot of good return on that because they know who I am when it comes to the system and everything else. Or sometimes, when I'm talking to a teacher, like, hey, sometimes uncomfortable conversation. I have a lot of kids that actually struggle with this kind of stuff, just kind of picking their brains how they teach it. Obviously, we can't teach people anything, but I'm just kind of always trying to find where the problem is at and trying to get ahead of it. And then if a kid fails an exam, I just like, hey, man, this is the resource available to you. And if you really want to do this, I can't hand walk you with this. You've got to kind of get better for yourself at this point. If you're really about this, and if you are, then I'll see you in a couple of weeks. So just be realistic with them too. So
the challenge was set on the table. The cards are on their table. So it sounds like you should you as a recruiter go outside of your comfort zone and help that individual, or should you not? And it takes too much time. The challenge is theirs to achieve only. Can you touch on that piece?
Yeah, I think that, it's really a case by case basis. We're not over here if there's a kid that, unfortunately fails the for me, it's always just like, here's the resources available. Sometimes I'd have, people that I just know, like a lot of, what are they called? Oh my goodness. They come, the tutors and stuff, like there's tutors in our area. I'd kind of send them that way to get help, because obviously on recruiting duty, your time is, like South Park Mexican said, time's money. I know you're from Texas, so you probably know who that is. So, yeah. But going through there, I think it's just got to be a balance. It's got to be a balance, but a lot of that balance needs to be on the individual to want to get better, because unfortunately, you're not going to be able to help everybody, even though as much as we want, but you got to at least extend that leaf to give them as much help as you can possible.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. I talk to a lot, again, I get talk to a lot of recruiters and say the same thing. I don't necessarily think that spending too much time on the individual is very beneficial for the streets, but for, like you said, some of them kind of get you the warm fuzzy, and you want to spend that extra minute because you see something potential in them. So I agree with that too. I see potential in a lot of recruits at drill instructor duty, and they just get shown the quarter deck. That's what the potential is met, So I'm with you. I'm with you. So I gotta ask. You transition from a regular MOS, regular old job, and then not regular job, but infantryman to recruiting, and some of the adversities there are different than, maybe it's a privilege, but in terms of mental health, in terms of the psyche of an individual, what are some of the things that you went through that made that recruiting so much more impactful or harder, so to speak? Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, I don't know, so obviously being an infantryman, you kind of get exposed to a lot of different things that, people aren't really, I guess, aware of, that, kind of how, I guess, we do our job and everything else. I just remember like going overseas and seeing things like either in Afghanistan or Iraq, and seeing people just like not having the same privileges as we had, and like their days just a little bit worse than ours, so that's always just helped me on recruiting duty, because it could always be a lot worse. I'm always just like, well, I could go to Bridgeport like right now for 4 or 5 weeks, or I could go get stationed back in 29 Palms, which actually that was my favorite duty station, in case anybody was wondering.
Yeah.
So for me, it's hindsight, but I would say that, mental health is there, like with certain individuals, and to each his own. If they feel like they need help, they should get it. For me, I've been fortunate. If you kind of go through my promotion pictures, you'd see some of the same individuals almost in, I'd say 90% of my promotions, and they're my good buddies that I served with back when I was in 1-1. My first team leader, Donnie Hicks, my good buddy Tyler Bays. He's such a good buddy that I ended up marrying his cousin, Marissa. So, Kyle Simons, Scott Plunkett, Jesse, and the list of that, Jesse Aguilar, Ariza, like the list just goes on. And that's kind of who I've vent to. My phone's always there. They can call me. That pride of belonging is honestly there, and something I never really expected. So for me, that's what's helped me. Yes, I've gone through some struggles on recruiting. And for me, it was like a reflection though of like, well, it's not, the kid didn't want to join. It's not necessarily that he's a turd. Maybe I did something wrong. And sometimes it didn't. I had a kid quit the day before going to boot camp, and luckily I had a backup shipper, and we still made shipping. But the kid quit, and for me, I was more mad like, what did I do wrong? Like that reflection internally. Sometimes it just ain't gonna be your day. A good mentor of mine, Master Guns Rob, said that you just can't have 2 bad days in a row. And that's just kind of been my mentality, just can't have 2 bad days in a row. Control the things that you can control. Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor, and he said that the only 2 things that got him through is he shaved his face every morning and he stood up, while being like that in the Holocaust. So he controlled the things that he controlled, and he made it through there, so I kind of just think about things like that. Control things I control. There is, people that need help, go get the help. It's available for you. You'd be crazy not to. For me, my help is PT. You called me earlier or sent me that message like, oh man, it was 2:00 his time or my time. I just got through doing a sprint workout, and I was like, oh my goodness. So, but everyone has their own thing. And if you need the help, go get the help. Mine's PT, and mine's the Marines that I've served with. My numbers always stays the same.
That's good. Be available. Those in your sphere of influence. It sounds like it's not huge, but I'm sure that everybody knows the face, Master Sergeant Lara, but you talk about sphere of influence in terms of help, accountability. And it seems like you have the same, you have the same people going with you everywhere you go. at least in terms of availability. And that's good, because the bigger you get, the more problems. I think it's like money. The more money you have, the more problems, right? The more people that know you and in your business is problems. Not to say that Marines don't have each other's back. No, that's not the thing. I think it's just, the people, your circle of trust should be super tight. And it sounds like that's what it is for you, right?
Oh, heck yeah.
So
yes, sir.
That's good. And that helps in terms of adversity, mental resilience, built-in resilience, right? Because you can call, hey man, have you done this? Have you done that? I got to ask, I got to touch on recruiting. One more question, or a couple more questions on recruiting.
Okay.
You have to go back to the streets, right? You have to influence in a different type of way. You said it earlier. You're the first impression of the Marine Corps. And basically, when they're going to recruiting school, and sometimes money's thrown at them to get them to the SDA. Do you think that takes effects of the first impression of the Marine Corps, or does that not hinder it at all, in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, ironically, I kind of can see it coming through the schoolhouse now. It's called the Recruiter Station Incentive Program. And man, I would tell you, I know it sounds bad, but if you're going to be a careerist and you're going to take advantage of it, I would. Yes, of course, I'd go to my hometown. Yes, of course, I'd like to get get a bonus, and get paid, I guess, extra while you're doing it. And I think that's more for the Marine Corps to help take care of your family. When I stayed with 1-1, for instance, back in 2000, when I first reenlisted back in 2009, I think.
Wow, calm down, Massarn.
No, I did an OPT-4 extension to stay with 1-1 for 2 more years or 2 deployments. Luckily I got both of those within that time frame. But I use that money to help my family. Me and my wife. Actually, I have 3 daughters: Adeline, Alana, Annabelle, and a son, Adric. And our Yorkie Smedley. But man, I think it's if you just do it the right way. But now the Marine Corps takes care of your family. You need to understand what your obligation is to the Marine Corps. It's not just, hey, I got my money, now I'm going to just kind of chunk up the deuce, because that's not how it works. A lot of people don't want to hear this, but, it's like we do owe the Marine Corps something, from what we do in our organization. I think my dog just went out the front door. What we do as an organization and everything else, we owe it to the Marine Corps to be able to, give back to that commitment that we talked about. So I can see it on both ends. It's very rare where I have a Marine that has an RSI that I guess has a bad attitude. Maybe we can look at the data and see if that's really an effective tool, but it has been across MSgt. We're pretty recruiter strong right now. Even with the little bit of stuff got going on, but we're pretty recruiting strong right now. Beating obviously our peers, no offense to anybody else, but it is what it is.
That's fair. I mean, that's fair. It's obviously working to get them there. It's working to get in there. So, but there's no analytics in terms of, what the benefit is, the return on investment in terms of mental game, what kind of work ethic you're going to get. Because I remember, I tell you what, as a drill instructor, I was just talking to one of my buddies, and we were there. And then the class after, if you got to get your dog, you can go get your dog. You want to get your dog?
No, my daughter just came through the door.
Okay. So I was talking to him. He's like, hey, we were going through DI school. And there was no incentive to go. It was just either you're voluntold or you volunteer. And that was it, right? Hey, thoroughly indoctrinated, go and sit on the yellow footprints as a drill instructor, hit it and quit it. There was no incentive. And so it was very small. And the next class after us, which was right in the beginning of the fiscal year 2017, right into 2018, they offered it for voluntoads. Right. So if you got histed and you chose drill instructor duty, you got a bonus, just like recruiting. Right. But that was the first time that, we seen in our experience, money was thrown out. And you talk about a product, it might not affect you, but it affect us in a way where I'm just here for the money. You can't do anything unless if I'm in my confines of my left and right, you really can't do anything. So the product was a little different. The work ethic was a little different because they were just there for the money.
Yeah.
So I could understand if it's not, you're meeting your quota. So it's obviously working. And plus I don't know, the physical grind is different than the mental grind for you guys, right? So I don't know. I think the product, it does get affected. We just won't know until years after, you know what I mean?
Well, hopefully the product gets affected in a way of our leadership of how we can kind of, because that's a senior enlisted, it's our job really what the culture of the Marine Corps is and that's our responsibility,
Ooh.
and to be able to guide them and mentor our junior Marines, staff NCOs. Shoot, I still got mentors everywhere.
Yeah.
So I do, I can see financially, yeah, maybe it may come with that baggage, but then, it's just like you get that junior, I was going to say boot, but if you get that junior Marine from ITV going to a victory unit,
they are fresh boots. I'm just saying they're fresh boots,
yeah,
new boots.
They're good.
Of course,
I get
you're
that.
fine.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But you got, it's our job as leaders to kind of mentor them where they need to be. And if they're within standard or out of standard, as come towards whatever metric you use, I think it's our responsibility to get them, not baby them, show them where their deficiencies are, help mentor, help them grow, and then maybe they can pass that on too.
That's good. Look, I'll tell you what, the return on investment on you, Master, it's working, ladies and gentlemen, it's working. If you are well spoken, I tell you what, I love my recruiter bubbles, and you're making me appreciate the tour. I know the grind is real for sure. I got to, thank you for touching on recruiting, but I got to get back to the community. At the very end, we always got to talk about mental health, suicide, right? 22 to 44. Sure. Today's a day of the 13, right? Afghanistan withdrawal. We got to talk about those things, and I know that affected them personally, mentally, and those around them. How does your experience help you with mental health, and what is it? One of those tools for the toolbox, tangible, intangible, right? For service members that are struggling with mental health, and you having those ideations right now, give them something that's worthwhile right now.
Yeah, I think a tool is to actually talk about it and don't try to hold and bottle everything in like you're on your own. You're on your own island. If you actually have those problems, Gunny, you understand, it used to be like, oh, stop being a goober, stop, trying to get out of this or get out of that. I think I'm kind of happy to see where it's like, if you got those problems, you have these tools available, whether within your battalion, whether the hotline, when it comes down to that, like reach out to your tribe, reach out to the Marines that you feel. My number's never going to change, and everyone understands that. I've always kept the same phone number. I even had a Marine ironically hit me up. And he's like, "You still got my number?" I was like, "No, I do." And he was actually about the same kind of mental stuff he's going through being out. So use your tools, use your Marines, use the people around you. Go to actually talk about it, because it's a real thing, and there's nothing wrong with it. Nice. So, any Marine, go out there and, the help is there. Go get it.
Absolutely, Master. Thank you for your time. I tell you, I agree with you. I don't know about you. I mean, you came in like 20 years earlier before me, so I don't know. So it's a lot different. But I'll tell you what, when I first came in, and the idea that mental health was a thing was a shameful thing, right? It was really shamed upon. And now that we're moving in the right direction, that it is a problem, that it does exist, and we need to tackle it now before they transition from uniform to civilian, because that's when it really takes a toll. So good. Communicate, talk about it, ladies and gentlemen. It's Master Sergeant Frank Lara, hailing out of San Diego, BRC, basic recruiting course out in San Diego. Yeah. One more thing. Where can they reach you out? Social media handles. Where can they talk to you, reach out to you, and get to know you a little bit more, and then maybe some accountability there here and there.
Yeah, they can reach me on Facebook. It's just Frank Lara. On Instagram, it's Master Sergeant _Lara _USMC. It's not Lara.USMC. That was a fake profile. Someone has 3,600 followers. I need to find out what they're doing, because it's not me. Or you can volunteer for recruiting duty, and I'll see you right there in our schoolhouse. So we can change the perspective of what recruiting is, and put the right people out there on the streets to make the legacy of the Marine Corps continue to grow.
I like that, Master.
That's a challenge. That's a challenge.
Don't give me that. Don't give me that. I thought, I'm not gonna lie to you, I did think about it for a second, but I've already done an SDA. What sense does it make to go do another one? You know what I mean? I'm already highly competitive.
That's why you should do it. That's why you should. Don't be complacent.
Oh,
don't be complacent.
Wow.
Complacent kills. So let's go.
Wow. Okay. Let me talk to the wife and see what she thinks. I'm sure I can convince her of that. Master Sergeant, thank you for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Pit Talk, pulling pits and pins with your host, Gunny G, where service members help service members, period. Follow, like, subscribe everywhere you get your podcast, and on all social media platforms. Let us know how we're doing. Any criticism is good criticism. Master Sergeant, this is Gunny G and Master Sergeant Lara. We out.
Talk is a podcast featuring active service members to discuss their thoughts and opinions on various issues surrounding military life, current events, and history. The statements heard here are the opinions of its members and guests. These do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of Defense and are not endorsed or sponsored in any way. Listener, viewer discretion advised.